Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh Shema Shai, Bashem Kakdash, the one to the apostles and elders, great middle school for teaching us his truth, peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of Israel. Shalom. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, the name is Hebrew, by Hashem is the name, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back with another lesson, and today I'm going to the Israelite foreigners, or also known as the Gentiles, and how we've been scattered among the four corners of the earth. And when I say four corners, speaking of the four cardinal directions going to north, east, south, and west. Going to the diaspora, the dispersion and scattering of our people. That's why you have many of our people start to pick up and follow the ways of the heathen, and even over the course of the years, start to even look like them. As you had many of our people start to mingle and go into their women, and have children, and their children have kids, and over the course of those years, Jake started to lose his features over time and started to look more and more like these heathen. That's why we're not to judge purely off of appearance, which you're about to see within this video right here. Place real quick, gets out the way, and probably get one or two more, and then we'll get the scriptures at hand, and the Lord's lesson be edifying. So place real quick.
Japanese, but I'm half black, bro. My dad's African American.
So you heard what he just said. He says, yeah, I look Japanese, but I'm half black. Then he goes on to say that his father is a so-called black man. But as you know, when you go into the scriptures, there's no such thing as mixed races. There's no I'm half this, I'm half that. But let's get Numbers 1 and 18 just to prove that real quick. Now, then they assembled all their congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers. So you are determined what you are by the way of your fathers. So in this case, one of the southern tribes, because he said his father was a so-called black man, African American, so it could be from the tribe of Judah, if not Benjamin Levi. And in this case, his mother being an Ammonite, so-called Japanese, he is still an Israelite. Because you still have a lot of these other camps pushing that both of your parents need to be Israelites in order for you to be an Israelite, when that's not the case. As we just proved, going into Numbers 1 and 18, how you're determined what you are by the way of your father, because your father is the one that carries the seed. So though he may look like a heathen, his line and his seed goes back to the nation of Israel. As well as the Spirit bears witness that he is the children of the Most High. Because as you know, there's a certain spirit that resides in Jake that you can tell and pick out from the rest that they are different, that they are special. Giving an example, Bruce Lee, you can tell that he's different and set above those heathens, man. There's something special about him. For example, also Eminem, you also see how his so-called people pushed him out and didn't want to be surrounded with them, tell him to go hang out with his so-called black friends. And you don't see any other Edomite coming close to what Eminem did, So we're going to finish off the video right here, probably get one or two more, and then that'll be that.
They know that?
You know that, of course.
How can they tell?
Because I don't look full Japanese in the attitude that I got.
Oh, yeah.
So you just heard what he said. He says, how can they tell? And as I mentioned earlier, there's a certain spirit that resides in Jake that you can tell that they're different. There's a clear distinction between Israel and the heathen. That's why we're not to judge solely off of appearance, but by the way of the Spirit. You even have brothers over there in the Philippines teaching and pushing the names of Yahweh Bashem. That's why it's proof in itself that they're Israel, man. Because first off, the Spirit got to be dealing with you to understand, to perceive these things. Dealing with this truth, this knowledge, understanding, as well as the names, man. Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. So you have many of our people that have been scattered amongst the four corners of the earth and in the midst of the heathen, man. Calling themselves Japanese, Chinese, whatever the case may be, but now you're also seeing the great awakening of our people come back to who we are. That's why I brought up that point, dealing with the brothers over there in the Philippines, teaching the names. So we're going to show our people are starting to wake up, man. And once again, why it's not wise to judge solely off of appearance, but to judge by the way of the Spirit, especially if they're able to receive and to understand this word, this truth. So finish off the video once again.
Like born and raised in Japan, most likely you're gonna be like closed-minded, and you're gonna be like an asshole. I know better than you. Bunch of motherfuckers, bunch of ninjas and bitches. They're weird as hell.
Damn.
They're weird. They're on some like goofy shit. At first, I thought like I look Japanese. I guess the attitude. I don't know. The same thing in the States. It's just that they don't even say it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they don't even say it to you. To Japan, they don't say that to you. They just look at you like, oh, what is like black people around this area? Yeah. It's the same thing in the States. It's the same fucking thing. That's how I don't recommend to live here.
Yeah.
I don't have niggas to visit. I don't get along with Japanese, most Japanese. I only get along with Japanese who understand, who are open to black people. They kind of like try to be nice to you.
Yeah.
But I hear that.
Yeah, I can see it in their eye.
See, you know
They thinking some other shit, but they smiling and stuff.
So once again, you see that he's a Jake. Even just by the way he's talking, you can tell. And there's many others like him that's in the midst of these heathen nations, in the midst of these different lands where we have been scattered. And it's why, once again, it's important to not judge solely off of appearance. You even have heathen nations looking like Israelites, That's why Yahweh Hashem is going to separate the tares from the wheat. And while we're to judge according to the Spirit, especially if they're able to receive and to understand this word. That's why I brought up that point with the brothers that's over there in the Philippines that's teaching and pushing the names of Yahweh Hashem Shai. So that's clear enough proof right there that they're Israel. Because what's in the Spirit got to be dealing with you in order to understand this thing. Especially dealing with the names Yahweh or Yahweh Shai.
Like I don't have to talk to them. I know like they don't fuck with me. 座ってダメっすよね。あ、ちょっと。確認できる。Trying to check your ass, bro.
Check me for what?
You got some ID, bro?
You had them, come up on them. Just going to show these heathens, don't like us.
Huh?
He want to check inside, bro. He want to check inside.
No, he ain't gonna take it. 中見るんですか？はい。いいっすよ。
すみません、ご協力ありがとうございます。チェックいいですか？
There you go. We also have 2 more videos we get out the way, and then we'll get the scripts at hand, and Lord will be edifying. And this is another example why we're not to, once again, judge according to the appearance. Now, I brought up another point. Jake has a certain spirit that resides in them that you can tell and pick out from the rest that they are different, that there's something special about them. They're set apart, from the heathen. There's something different about them, which we'll see right here. Because Jake is the salt of the earth. And salt is a flavor enhancer, and Jake, adds flavor to everything that he touches. I mean, look at this. This is a little kid right here, man. Has to be a Jake. So I'll get another video and then we'll... And once again, I mean, what people that has been, scattered amidst these different lands and start to look like these heathen, calling themselves Japanese, Chinese, but in reality, their seed and their line goes back to the nation of Israel, and the Spirit bears witness that they're the children of the Most High. Especially, you have many other videos of, them dancing, singing, whatever the case may be. You can tell that there is something different about them, man. They're set apart from the heathen, Right, there you go. But let's get these scriptures. Don't want to make this a super big lesson, but probably get Numbers 1:18 one more time, just to recap that. It's Numbers 1:18. They assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers. So once again, you are determined what you are by the way of your fathers. So if your father is an Israelite, you're an Israelite. If he's from the tribe of Judah, you're from the tribe of Judah, and so on. Now it says, and they declared the pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers according to the number of the names from the 20 years old and upward by the post. So just wanted to bring that point home. You are what your father is. And going to that video we played, the first video, that dude's a Jake, saying he was half black and that his father is so-called African American. So he would be from the tribe of Judah or one of the southern tribes. Even though his mother may be a heathen, an Ammonite, a so-called Japanese woman, he'd still be an Israelite. But let's say if his father was a heathen, an Ammonite, and his mother was a so-called black woman, he would be a heathen. He would be an Ammonite. Now, this is Romans 8:16. Now, it says, the Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. And as I brought up a point earlier with the brothers that's over in the Philippines, that's teaching and pushing the names of Yahweh Shemashah, waking up and come back to, who they are. That's clear enough proof that they're Israel, man. Especially if they're able to once again receive and to understand this word, this truth. You're Israel, man, and the Spirit beareth witness to that. Because I mentioned earlier, there's a certain spirit that's in Jake that you can tell there's something different about them. That they're set apart, set above these different nations, man. Even though they may look like the heathens, their seed and the line goes back to the nation of Israel, and the Spirit beareth witness to that they're Israel. That they're children of the Most High. Now, let's get John 7:24. Now, it says, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. So, right there you go. That's the point I brought up earlier, why we're not to judge a book by its cover. Because once again, you even have heathen nations looking like Jake, man. And also, just give another example. If you know Drake and you see or look up his son, he looks nothing like his father. He's which we can get a little image right here just to showcase. So though he may look like an Edomite, he's a Jake. He's from, I believe, Jake's from the tribe of Judah, so he'd be a Judite. So that's why we're not to judge according to the appearance, man, but by the way of the Spirit, whether they're of Israel or not, whether they're of Yahweh by Shema Shai. And I keep mentioning, especially if they're able to understand and receive this word. John 7:24, because that's only who this word, this truth is for, Israel, man. John 7:24, now it says, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Now this is Matthew 5:13, now it says, ye are the salt of the earth. As I mentioned earlier, there's a certain spirit that resides in Jake that you can tell there's something special about them, man. And as you know, salt is a flavor enhancer. Now, so ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men. And this is, ye are the salt of the earth. We're a special people, man. Especially those that have received this knowledge and this understanding of this word and this truth. Because salt is also a great preserving agent, as this truth is. Going to Isaiah 33:6, how wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, as well as Psalms 91, how it should be thy shield and buckler. Now it says, ye are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. So that light's going to shine wherever they may be. As you see in these different lands where you see many of our people are scattered, calling themselves Japanese and Chinese, you can see the way they dance, the way they speak, the way they move, that there is something different about them, that they're set apart from the rest of those heathens, man. That they are Israel. Verse 15, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. And it says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify you, your Father, which is in heaven. So let's get the rest of these scriptures and we'll shut up from there. As is Isaiah 11:11 to also further prove that you have many of our people that's in the midst of these different lands. Now it says, it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people who was delivered the first time, Israel, going back to ancient Egypt. Now to be delivered and recovered a second time, you would have to be taking part in the first time. So if this is speaking of the heathen nations, how would they have taken part in the first time being delivered? If the Lord is only dealing with Israel, and specifically the elect right now. Now it says, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. So these are all these different lands that we have been scattered amongst, and that you have many of our people in the midst of, calling themselves these different names, Japanese, Chinese, Ishmael, whatever the case may be. But in reality, their seed and their line goes back to the nation of Israel, and the Spirit bears witness to that they're the children of the Most High, and that's who the Lord is coming back to redeem. The Israelites. Go back to the title, going into the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles. And you have many people that like to push that, the Lord's going to deliver the heathens because, it says Gentiles. But you got to have the understanding to know who the Gentiles are speaking of, man. and it is Israel. When you go into many scriptures, it proves that Yahweh is only dealing with Israelites. So is the Lord contradicting himself right here? No. Because they are Israelites. Many of our people are scattered amongst these different lands. And once you see in the Great Awakening of our people, you see brothers over there, once again in the Philippines, pushing and teaching the names of Yahweh Bashim Shai and many others in these different lands. Coming back to who we are. Waking up to that. Now this is Jeremiah 23:3. To also bring that point home. Now it says, I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries whither I have driven them. And this also was part of our punishment, for being rebellious, for going against Yahweh Bashim Shai, not listening. We were sent out in these different lands. So whither I have driven them, and I will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. So once again, the Lord is coming to redeem the remnant of his people, his elect. And even of our people, once again, that scattered in the midst of these different lands. As we read it one more time, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time. That should be a key point right there. The second time. What was the first time? Going to ancient Egypt. And who would the Lord redeem? The Israelites. And if you say that these aren't Israelites, then you don't know what you're talking about. But of course, there are actual heathens, but you have Israelites amongst them. Calling themselves these different names. But once in their seed, the line goes back to Israel. And why we're not to judge according to appearance once again, but by the way of the Spirit, whether they're of Yahweh Shema Shai or not. Especially if they're able to receive and understand this word. Now, this is Hosea 7:8. Now, as Ephraim had mixed himself among the people, Ephraim is a cake not turned. Now, this is also a cut to all those BOIs, those black-only Israelites. That's a cut to them. So when it says Ephraim, he had mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. So you have many of our people that has mingled with these, heathen women. As I mentioned, kind of the beginning of the lesson, you have many of our people start to lose their looks, and their features over the course of those years, especially having children and, and so on. So over those years, they start to look more and more like heathens, time after time. Now, this is Matthew 24:31. I think we can finish this off right here. But Ephraim is a cake not turned. Once going to cut to those BOIs, I want to say that, Israelites are only black when that's not the case. Because you have the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles. Israelites that look like heathens, but in reality are Israelites. That's Matthew 24:31. As he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds. So they also got right there the four winds going to the four corners of the earth. Once again, north, east, south, and west. So the Lord's going to redeem the elect of the nation of Israel from the four corners of the earth, from where we have been scattered. Thus, and he shall send his hand against with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. See if I missed anything. That's the point right there. Now we got a few more, and we'll shut down from there. Ezekiel 11:16-17. Now it says, therefore say, thus saith the Lord power, although I have cast them far off among the heathen, and although I have scattered them among the countries. So the Lord has scattered us in the midst of these different nations, these different lands. Once again, going to the diaspora, the dispersion. And although I have scattered them among the countries, yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary in the countries where they shall come. Therefore say, thus saith the Lord God, I will even gather you from the people and assemble you out of the countries where ye have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. Who was the land of Israel promised to, man? The Israelites. I mean, it can't get any clearer than that the Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, are Israelites, man. Our people are hard-headed, man. Deuteronomy 28:64. Now it says, Yahweh Shema Shai shall scatter thee among all the people. And this is what the Lord said he would do to us if we continue to go off and rebel. From one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And so we have many of our people start to pick up and follow the ways of the heathen, even calling themselves these other nations. When in reality, they were Israel. Even wood and stone. So there you go. Let me get this right here too. Now Isaiah 14. This is a good chapter right here. And that says, for Yahweh Shema Shai will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. So once again, Yahweh Shema Shai is only dealing with the Israelites. Because as we read earlier in the scripture, If these were speaking of the literal heathen nation, it just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't line up, because once again, you go into the scattering of our people, and even if our people has been scattered in the midst of these heathen nations and have lost their ways and lost who they were. But now we're starting to come back. Let's continue on. So it's not speaking of the heathen nations, because many other scriptures prove that Yahweh is only dealing with Israel. So if it was speaking of the heathen nations, it wouldn't make sense and wouldn't align with the scriptures and would contradict what the Lord said. And as you know, Yahweh is not a liar. Now it says, for Yahweh will mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now it says strangers. He's not speaking of the heathen, but once again the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles. Because you're not going to have these heathen nations being joined together with us. Being joined together means you're taking part. And they're not going to take part in the promises. So showing you're not speaking of the heathen nations, but speaking of Israel. Now it says verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them, and the land of Yahweh shall for servants and handmaids. Now this is going to the heathen nations, going into captivity. As in, the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, who captives they were. Revelation 13, I believe the 10th chapter, or it's like 13th chapter in the 10th verse, correct? Going to, he that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. But now it says, and shall take them captives, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in that day, the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage, wherein thou wast made to serve. So there you go. Pretty much the main point right there. So once of these strangers, speaking of Israel, the Israelite foreigners, because once you're not going to have these heathen nations being joined together with us. Now it says, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. You're going to have these heathen nations, serve us in the kingdom. They're going to be our slaves, man. They're going to go into captivity for the things that they have done. So pretty much the main point already, came across that video, and I was want to make a lesson out of it. So it was edifying and to the point. And I do want to give all praises to Allah and glory to Hashem Shah, Hashem Kakadash, the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching us His truth. Peace and blessings to the whole collective of Israel, and Shalom, since we're